Day 84, Germantown and Bonnie and Clyde. So as much as I enjoyed Texas, it was time to hit the road again. So I said goodbye to the family and I was on my way to the neighboring state of Louisiana. And overall, I spent 3 days traveling through it, and I did not like it at all. I beg forgiveness from the good people of the state of Louisiana. And my first stop was a place called Germantown, which is a historical site of a cult community that lived there for almost 40 years. And the community was founded by a German guy named Bernard Mueller, who insisted that he was the Lion of Judah and an alchemist in the possession of a philosopher's stone, and who called himself Count de Leon. And in the end of 19th century, he made contact with another cult someplace out in Pennsylvania, claiming to share their beliefs and their philosophies. And he and his wife and about 40 followers came over there from Europe. But very quickly, Mueller and the local cult leader started clashing, and Mueller used the dissatisfaction of the Philadelphia cult members with their custom of celibacy to cause a splint. And after a generous payoff by the other leader, they left with about 2/3 of his followers and traveled west with a few stops in the middle. And eventually Mueller died of yellow fever someplace in Louisiana, and his wife took over the cult and continued on their way until they settled in this Germantown community. And they lived there relatively quietly and peacefully for over 40 years until the community basically died out and dispersed. And why Germantown? Why that specific place in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana? Well, because it is in the same latitude as the holy city of Jerusalem. And when I told the lady who ran the museum, she asked me where I was from, and I said from Jerusalem. She almost had a fit because it was very funny. So I enjoyed walking around and seeing their shops and houses and how they lived, and the handmade quilts, which was the highlight. But anyway, America is just such a fruitful ground for all kinds of crazies and all kinds of cults. It's simply unbelievable. My next stop, a short drive away from there, was a town of Gippsland, Louisiana, whose claim to fame is being the last stop for Bonnie and Clyde before they were ambushed and gunned down by lawmen a couple of miles out of town. So they have the sandwich shop that proudly displays its claim that that's where Bonnie purchased her last sandwich that she still had in her hand when she was killed. And they have the Bonnie and Clyde Museum, which is very lovingly and very interestingly put together by a guy whose grandfather was one of the policemen who killed Bonnie and Clyde. So it was very interesting to walk the museum and to see the exhibits and the pictures. And the funniest thing is they have the car, bullet-ridden car in which Bonnie and Clyde were killed, but the guy said that it's actually a replica, and the real car sits in a casino in Parham, Nevada. And I was like, I can't believe it. I was in Parham. If I knew, I would have definitely gone to see it. And it was just kind of very interesting to read about the story of these two people. And they actually have a box for donations to help Bonnie's niece relocate her body to be buried next to Clyde. Apparently that was Bonnie's wish, and her mother was so upset with Clyde for leading her daughter astray that she buried her someplace else, and now the niece is trying to raise money to actually fulfill Bonnie's last wish. So I'm a sucker for romantic stories. I put $1 in a donation box, and then I got a very stern talking to from my friend Casey, who told me how they were just a pair of criminals who killed people in cold blood, and there's absolutely nothing romantic about it. And reasonably speaking, I agree with him, but still, I'm a sucker. What can you do? And then you drive for a couple of miles and you hit the place along the highway where the actual ambush and shootout happened, and they have a marker and a nice inscription. So I made it there, I read it, I walked around, I took a couple of pictures, and that was my tribute to Bonnie and Clyde. And then I just continued driving south towards the Gulf, and I passed a little town of Alexandria, and I just needed to stop to rest a little bit, and I found myself by this courthouse with this beautiful statue dedicated to a Confederate soldier with all kinds of inscriptions around the monument. And I was like, I have to take a picture with it before they tear it down. So anyway, that was my first day in Louisiana.